Hi, everyone, and welcome to Catalyst Conversations, where we seek to enable, empower, equip, and enlighten the business community through insightful conversations with entrepreneurs and other business people. I am your host, Slav Zinchenko, and we are coming to you from Springfield, Massachusetts. Catalyst Conversations is brought to you by the one, the only, the Catalyst Smart Card. With a quick cover of your Catalyst Smart Card, you will be able to transfer all of your business and contact information directly into somebody's phone. To get your personal Catalyst Smart Card, contact us at 413-351-7889 by text or call, or to download all of our contact information, please scan the QR code behind me. One small note before we show the episode, I will need to refine both the presentation value and my skills as an interviewer. Rest assured that those refinements will be made. And without further ado, here is my conversation with marketing guru and owner-operator of the Cloud9 Marketing Group, Dylan Pilon. Thanks so much for watching and enjoy the episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Catalyst Conversations. Today we are here with Dylan Pilon, a local entrepreneur. And I'm going to ask him some questions about what makes his business tick, how he got into it, and how he can help you, and how he can help you not just as a professional, but also try to get some gears turning in your mind. So Dylan, give us your kind of, in a nutshell, your life story with a special focus on what you do and how you got here professionally.
Yeah. First off, thank you for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Of course.
I grew up locally here. I grew up in East Longmeadow, went to East Longmeadow High School, ended up at Holyoke Community College, sort of against my will. At first, I really wanted to do the 4-year college path, traditional education. Financially realized pretty quickly that wasn't really an option for me. So took the community college route, which ended up being one of the best decisions that I had ever made. Holyoke Community College is a great institution, and they have great faculty and support there. So I transitioned out of there, and I went to UMass Amherst, went to the Eisenberg School of Management with a focus in marketing. And while I was there, one of my professors happened to be from my hometown, and she said to me, there's this internship posting in digital marketing. I know that you're sort of interested in the marketing track. You should look into it. So I looked at the internship posting, and the application deadline had already passed 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But I applied anyway. And I went in, I did the interview, and they offered me the internship position. So I learned a valuable life lesson there.
Yeah.
Deadline means different things to different people.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's definitely one of my life's takeaways is, I always try to be on time and respectful of people's time, but if you have an opportunity to take an at bat, even if you think it might be too late, you should definitely still swing for the fences.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick question. So for somebody who's just coming out of high school and as an advocate of maybe community college, is that something that you would recommend looking at as like a first option for somebody who is not quite sure what they want to? Because it sounds like you didn't feel like you were born for marketing. But what advice would you give in terms of community college to somebody who's just coming out?
Yeah, no, didn't necessarily think I was born for marketing. Certainly never planned on owning my own business. I think unless you're in one of those professions that requires one of those higher level degrees, if you're trying to go into medicine or you're trying to practice law or be a pharmacist, something like that, I think community college should be everyone's first option if they're considering college, right?
Yes.
I think there's immense value in the trades.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
I think for decades to come, there's going to be a major supply and demand issue there.
Yep.
So, college might not even be the recommended route for everybody out the gate. But if you're thinking about going to college, I think you should go to community college first.
Okay.
Everybody has to take generally the same prerequisite, like base courses, right? You have to take math, you have to take English, right? And to pay a premium to take those types of courses just doesn't make sense to me. So if you can get a quality education for a fraction of the cost, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate your what you said about applying 2 weeks late, and it's like the game's not over. You know, you don't you won't know until you have the courage to try. And one of the big lessons for anybody who's going to try to do anything on their own is to have the courage to at least apply, even if you're facing an uphill battle. And the worst thing that they could have done is said, no, you're too late. But because you applied, now it sets you down a path that you're on now.
Yeah, it changed the course of my life forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that internship, while I was there, it was a digital marketing and e-commerce internship. It lasted 8 weeks. At the end of the 8 weeks, I think out of everybody in the program, there might have been 2 of us that were offered a full-time stay, and I was fortunate enough to be one of them.
Yeah.
And while I was working that position, I was doing a lot more of the e-commerce stuff than I was the marketing and the social media and that side.
Okay.
So that led me to found Cloud9 Marketing Group. It was sort of like a side hustle. I don't really, that's such a buzz term now these days. But it really was that where I just needed to scratch that itch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to do the social media, and my full-time job just didn't particularly have a ton of opportunity there.
Yeah.
So I created an opportunity for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be another one of those life lessons, right? I mean, there's endless amounts of opportunity out there if you're willing to create it for yourself.
Well, the great thing is, as I'm learning with Catalyst, is the benefit of doing your own thing is you get to pick your path. The danger is that you don't know what dangers lie ahead. So you are at the very front, and you're not sure if you're going to stumble on a tiger or a lion, as you're trailblazing through the woods. So it's a blessing and a curse in some ways, but if you've got the guts to do it, you absolutely should.
Yeah, I believe that everybody should find something that they enjoy. Mm-hmm. That's the key. And if you can find a way to monetize something that you love doing, it's amazing, because then there's that corny phrase, if you're doing something you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right? And that's not true, of course, because there's work involved in everything. Like you said, there's pitfalls, there's obstacles, and that just comes with the entrepreneurship journey. Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, I think everybody should try to create something of their own that they can own and do, even if it's at the smallest scale. Yeah.
And so how long were you at this company before you started Cloud9, or maybe at what point did you transition to full-time?
Yeah, so the journey didn't end with that company. So I after the internship, I ended up working there for about 2.5 years total. Okay. I started Cloud9 pretty shortly after I started there, and started building that in the background. While I was working there, I got a message on my LinkedIn profile from a woman who was the HR manager at another company in the same industry, and she recruited me, and she basically said, we're looking to create this position. It looks like you do that over here.
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to come in and kind of show us how it's done? So that was very appealing to me, being able to kind of blaze a path within an already established company.
Yeah.
So that was the next step of the journey. While all of that was happening, Cloud9 was slowly growing in the background.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it got to a point where I decided, I had to make a decision on whether or not I was going to go, all in on myself or continue working in a corporate America setting. And it got to a point where I just did some math, right? And it's the key moment. I still vividly remember it, and I actually have this piece of paper in my desk drawer to this day. But I literally plotted out, what does it cost for me to just exist on the planet? Yeah. Not to enjoy that existence, but what are the bare, I have to pay my mortgage, I have a car, I need to eat, and you start going down this list. And when I added it all up, the number at the bottom, it was around 30 grand, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I looked at where Cloud9 was at the time, and I said, well, I mean, I'm doing this from 6 p.m. to whenever I go to sleep. Yeah. What could I do if it was full time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or if I was working 50 or 60 hours a week just with Cloud9, could I accomplish that 30? And this is a no-brainer. I'm going in.
Yeah, well, it's. I think it's critical to do that math. I was just listening to actually a Mark Cuban interview, and he says, if you're going to go out on your own, don't just wake up one day and quit. And like that little bit of math, I'm sure, prevented a lot of pain in the future. Because if you found that, hey, wait a second, I need $100,000 to live, and you were only making $50,000, then that puts an immense amount of pressure on you to try to make ends meet. So that's a huge insight in terms of if you're going to start your own thing, just as much as you possibly can, make sure that the numbers work.
And there's a huge, you touched on a huge piece, and it's about when you're doing that math, what sort of lifestyle are you really living?
Yeah.
Right? And that's a huge thing. And I talk to people all the time. They're living well beyond their means, or they're living a lifestyle that, I'm going to say that they don't deserve to live yet at this point in their life. And that's a huge thing, right? Like, people always are so concerned about what the public perception of them is, what other people think about them, what kind of car do they drive, what kind of clothes do they wear. If you're really trying to bootstrap and make something happen for yourself, that audit is extremely powerful, because you'll realize, what do I need versus what do I want? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and then it's also like when you go out from under the cover of a big company, or even a small company, whatever, when somebody else is cutting your paycheck, like you are taking your security into your own hands, which is not something that you realize when you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. So it's absolutely a different reality. So how did you? So the company is called Cloud9 Marketing. How did you come up with that name? And tell us a little bit about the birth of the company.
Yeah, that's a classic. So Cloud9 Marketing Group was actually, so at the time when I started the company, I was still living at my parents' house. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, and I was going through the process of building my own website, which I recommend probably nobody ever does. But I decided that I really wanted to learn a little bit about WordPress and see what it is that I could build on my own. Also, finances, websites cost money. So to pay somebody to do that out the gate didn't seem like a good idea. And my father was throwing out, he threw out 100 names that you would never name anything in the world.
Sure.
Right? And
that's what fathers are for.
Precisely, right? And then casually one morning he just says, well, what about Cloud9 Marketing? And I said, well, whoa, okay, let's evaluate this, right? Cloud9, that's like the ultimate feeling of euphoria, being on Cloud9, right?
Absolutely.
Very positively connotated. I'm looking at doing digital marketing. So, the cloud, being online, that sort of fit that motif. And then I did a little bit more research to see, well, somebody must be using this already. And to my surprise, there was nobody even close to me. I think I found a company in Canada somewhere that might have been toying with the name, but it looked like their Facebook page was pretty close to being defunct as
outdated,
it could be.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Sure.
And so I decided to go with it. And when you're starting any kind of entity, my number one piece of advice would be, make sure you have a really good accountant. Make sure that you have an insurance person.
Yep.
And make sure that you have an attorney. Those are the three things that you absolutely want to have secured out the gate before you get going, because those three key pieces could save you a lot of heartache and a lot of money down the road.
Yes, very good insight.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you this. Let's just say your memory is going to be erased in 5 minutes from now, right? And but the new you is going to go into the same industry. Somehow there's some itch to get into marketing.
Sure.
What's one piece of general life advice that you would give to yourself, to this new you? And then what's one piece of marketing or industry advice that you'd give yourself if you could?
Yeah, so the life advice piece, we sort of touched on it, but I think not being afraid to take the risk is huge, right?
Yeah.
Cloud9 will be 9 years old next month, which is wild for me to think about, that I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. But if I wasn't willing to take that leap of faith and bet on myself, you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a piece of the life advice. As far as like the business advice or the marketing advice, I think one thing that I learned along the way is sell on value, not on price.
Okay.
And make sure that you set ridiculously clear expectations for clients, for vendors, for yourself.
Yeah.
Setting expectation early is something that's going to make sure that you're not inadvertently setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
And then also, the selling on value and not on price piece. When you're trying to figure out how you fit in the marketplace, that can be a tricky thing to find out. Like,
sure.
what is my service worth, and how much should I be charging for this? I urge people to look at it through the lens of what is the value that you're providing to your client, and what is that value worth to them. The market is only going to allow you to charge as much as the market is going to allow you to charge. Sure. But there is a component in there of the utility that you provide to somebody, and there's perception around what that utility is worth outside of what competitive market rate might be, and balancing those two things is important.
Right. And so it's tricky for sure getting started, because you think that everybody's price conscious, and certainly to an extent they are. But I think one of the things that you're saying is, if you can justify charging a higher price because you're saying, well, you're going to get all of this, then don't be afraid to do that. And you can certainly, especially when you're getting started with family and friends and people that you trust, you can kind of pilot that a little bit. But don't feel like bargain basement prices are going to be your winning ticket.
Totally, yeah. It is hard to figure out what you're supposed to charge for something, but and in the beginning, when you don't have those case studies or those wins that you can talk about, when you're talking to a prospect and you're trying to explain, well, this is what I'm going to deliver you, and this is what it costs, and the reason why is because I was able to do this for this client over here, or this for this client over here. If you don't have that yet, you need to sort of take a step back and try to evaluate, well, if I was on the other side of this table, what would I think this is worth? And try to take, don't be romantic about it. A lot of people are very, very romantic about what they provide and what they do because, it's their baby, it's their passion. They think that they deserve to be paid X amount of dollars. Remove the emotion out of it and look at it from a business perspective and say, hey, I'm delivering this service to somebody that is going to potentially generate X number of dollars of revenue. Yeah. How much of that revenue should I be taking?
Okay. Well, and so that actually prompts another question, which is, how do you compete with, let's call them the big guys? Because I mean, they're big, team companies, marketing companies with stacks and stacks of staff, whatever else. So how do you find, as you are saying, like, okay, hey, I'm a marketing guy in a field of other marketing people. So what has allowed you to, I don't even want to say compete, but to like survive and even thrive in a world where there are people who are already doing what you're doing, and maybe they've got more years and more size and more resources available?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that when you're starting out, you're not going to be, I know you didn't want to use the word compete, but let's just go with that.
Sure.
You're not going to be competing with any of those folks out the gate anyway, right? You don't have those same opportunities and those same at-bats. So you have some time to build up, your offering and get those case studies and those examples. But, for me, I think when we're in Western Massachusetts, Northern Connecticut market, there's only so much that you can charge a client here because businesses' budgets are what they are, right? Yeah. Now, we service clients across the country, so then there's a little bit of learning curve involved in that,
yeah,
right?
Sure.
But you also have to know what your strengths are, and you have to play to those strengths, right? So, I'm not going to try to compete with an agency that has a full media production department, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't have all kinds of camera and lighting and sound equipment and this and that. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to have strategic partners that do those things. I can leverage their skill set, their equipment, etc.
Yeah.
And I can offer that service to my client, so I'm able to act as a full service agency while still specializing in what it is that we personally deliver as a service. So there's a lot of value in collaboration. Don't build a wall immediately, and don't start off with an us versus them mentality, because there's a lot of money out there to be made, and there's plenty of it to go around. And by collaborating with the right people, and I'll say that part again, collaborating with the right people, and you learn over the years who the right and wrong people are to work with. But there's endless opportunity out there for you, and then everybody can get a slice of that pie.
Well, and I think it's important to remember that you have a personal network that you can start with. And you have local people that you can start with. Because even if there are plenty of marketing companies from international, national, whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who has marketing needs has found all the answers. And that's one of the benefits of being a professional is you are taking the expertise to them. And so you have the opportunity to get to do business with somebody, because if they are feeling that particular pain, you are coming with the painkiller, where they would otherwise they would go online and try to find what does this medicine do? What does that medicine do? So bringing the solution to them gives you a fighting chance, I think. Is that fair to say?
You just touched on a few things. I'm gonna try to remember what they are, but you mentioned network was one of the first things, and that's huge, right? So our first client that we ever got at Cloud9 was just the local bar that my friends and I used to go shoot pool and listen to live music at.
Yeah.
I had been a customer of theirs, and I built up rapport with their management team, and I knew the owner, and that was the first client that Cloud9 ever got, because I said, hey, can we sit down and talk about your marketing? You have a Facebook page, it's pretty good. I think I can help make it better. You don't have an Instagram account. I think you're missing a piece of the puzzle there. Let me provide you these services, and that's how I had gotten started. And your network is huge. It's literally everything. There's a phrase, your network is your net worth.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I've
you've heard it
for sure.
A little kitschy, but there is a lot of truth to that. And so networking is a huge component of being successful, I think, in anything in life, but especially in business.
Yeah.
The other thing that you mentioned was alleviating somebody's pain point, right? So, from what I do, I'm either identifying a pain point and I'm solving that, or I am identifying some sort of pleasure point that they don't have, and I'm providing that, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of the two. A lot of people say marketing is problem solution. I agree with that. And that's exactly what you're trying to do, right? You're just trying to make somebody's life easier. They hire me for one of, or a combination of three reasons. They don't know how to do it, they don't like to do it, or they don't have time to do it.
Yeah.
Those are the problems that I solve. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and that's exactly what, for anybody who's thinking about providing, let's just say, a service, that's it right there, in the sense that somebody theoretically could do it themselves, but the learning curve that they have to undergo and the time that they have to take away from their core competency makes outsourcing it just so much more cost effective in the long run, and it solves a lot of their headaches because you've already got the expertise.
Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, for sure.
Gary V.
Yeah.
One of his things that I sort of latched onto early on was you should triple down on what you're good at, and outsource everything else.
For sure, yeah.
If you focused on what you were good at and the value that you provide, the amount of revenue that you could generate in that time, instead of spending that time trying to learn or teach yourself how to do something else, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to that strategic partner situation, right? I don't have expertise in video production. Instead of trying to figure out how to do it and spending all those hours and hours, 10,000 hours in training, another famous phrase.
Yeah.
I align myself with folks who that's their specialty and that's their value that they provide. and I focus on mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Building my own website in the beginning, learned very quickly that this is not something that I want to learn how to do to be able to package and sell to the marketplace. So that's something that I eliminated from a potential service offering, right? You learn those things as you experiment.
Yeah, and there's room for collaboration there as well, like you mentioned, relationship building, and then kind of multiple people can eat and everybody wins. So that's great. Okay, so next question, and this will give us an opportunity to kind of do a deeper dive into what Cloud9 does, maybe some of the finer points. But let's suppose I'm Johnny Youngster, just come out of high school. What would you say to recruit me to your industry, and then maybe tack onto that some of the finer details of what Cloud9 marketing does?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, and this is another Gary V-ism, but everybody should be a marketer first, and then you just happen to be marketing the thing that you actually do, right?
Yeah.
And I think looking at it through that mindset, I agree, and it's not. I don't think I agree because I'm biased because I'm a marketer, but in any business, any profession, whether it's selling a product or selling a service, you need to be able to market that appropriately to survive.
Yeah.
And it's all about how you position yourself and what is that value that you're providing, and what pain point are you alleviating, and all of that. So, if I was talking about, we have an internship program at Cloud9. If we're writing up an internship description, trying to get somebody to apply. I'm talking about the skills that you're going to take away that you can then apply to everything in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will teach you how to do specific things, right? Like we write copy and we do graphic design.
Okay.
We know how to navigate, Meta Business Suite and LinkedIn and Google, Yelp, Hulu, email marketing, those kinds of things. How to do targeted advertising, how to make sure that you're controlling budgeting, making sure that it's hitting the right audience.
Yeah.
Those are the skills that you'll learn throughout an internship. But the overarching theme, the takeaway for anybody is that you're learning how to market at a high level, which you can apply to anything in your life, including marketing yourself.
Yeah.
You get done with this internship, and now you have a better understanding of how you could position yourself as a candidate in the marketplace and provide value to an employer, alleviate a pain point that they might have,
absolutely,
fill a gap in their skill set, etc. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, or the thing that an intern or an employee would get is just learning the fundamentals of how important marketing is and how to effectively do it at a high level. And of course, we drill down into the minutia, and you learn the particular skills needed to execute those.
Yeah, absolutely. The important point there is that, especially for somebody that's young, is that you are aggregating skills and knowledge, which is like, even if you had to pay to do that, even if it was a reverse paid internship,
right?
Like, it just makes so much sense to do that when you're young, because you have relatively little to offer to the world. And so that's the time to be a sponge, so that as you accumulate this body of knowledge, you can then go out and add value. So I think that's huge. Did you want to say anything more about what Cloud9 does, or maybe your value proposition, mission statement, anything like that?
Yeah, ultimately we are in the customer service business. So looking at it through that lens, a lot of what we do, we're providing customer service to our client, but simultaneously we're also providing customer service to all of their clients and their customers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm managing an online community for you and I'm replying to comments, messages, reviews, things like that, I am acting as your PR department.
Yeah.
I'm a representative and an extension of your brand in the marketplace. So that's a huge piece of what we offer is, we help put a professional public face to our clients, and they can count on us to be there they know that the right marketing messages are going to go out at the right time.
Yeah.
They're going to hit the right people. And then we're going to be able to facilitate conversations and generate opportunities for them to create more business, to generate more revenue.
Yeah.
So it's kind of multifaceted. Like, we have a client, but we also have to manage the relationship with all of their customers as well.
For sure. Yeah, well, and obviously, because that's the marketing is very, very outward facing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a web. Who's your I don't want to say ideal client, but who is maybe your average client, and is there anything particular about that company or that person that approaches you?
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of ended up specializing in real estate marketing to a degree.
Okay.
Sort of a happy accident in the beginning. Back to your network and how do you grow. I went to the real estate agent who sold me my house, and I said, "Hey, you need any help with your marketing?"
Yeah.
Of course, the conversation was a little more in depth than that.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Essentially, that's how it started. And we sort of went down this path where we became known for that. So, in this Western Mass, Northern Connecticut area, we are really the specialists when it comes to real estate marketing. But we do a lot for folks that are in the trades, kitchen and bath remodeling, landscapers, tree removal, roofing, concrete, that kind of stuff. We also do a fair amount of work in food and beverage. So, bars, restaurants, breweries, concert venues.
Okay. Gotcha.
Those would be our big three, but we could work with anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked with people who author children's books, right? I mean, some of the more smaller boutique businesses up to, commercial enterprises and anything in between.
Well, and that mix is good, because even if somebody approaches you in an industry that you haven't worked with before, that's like, now you get to stretch yourself a little bit. So that's part of the growth process, which is going to be necessary if you want to survive as a business.
Yeah. Generalizing gives you a lot more opportunity, and it gives you a lot more exposure to different things, different tactics, different methods of approaching problem solving. Having a micro specialization that you're known for is really nice, because you're sort of kind of branding yourself or positioning yourself as a subject matter expert in a certain vertical.
Yeah.
But having the ability to step outside of that and gain more experience and learn more by getting involved in other industries, and then everything translates to everything else, right?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
A tactic that might work in this industry, if we just tweak it a little bit, we could deploy it over in this industry and do something similar. And we have the experience and we've seen the results to be able to translate that across different industries. Yeah,
that's excellent. Now, let's say that I'm looking for marketing help and I don't know you. Let's just say I contact a local marketing outfit. What's what should a consumer look for from a good professional in your industry? And then maybe you don't have to, but if you want to splice it up to like good, great, bad, you can do that. But generally, like, give us some insider knowledge that will allow somebody not to walk into a deal that's going to end up bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple of things that are sort of coming to mind are, there are certain things out there that you should be charged for. And there's certain things out there that you shouldn't be charged for. And an example, I'm going through this right now. We're onboarding a newer client, and MailChimp is a service out there for email marketing. A lot of people are familiar with it. If you have up to 2,000 contacts in a MailChimp, that service is available at no cost. It's a stripped down service, so you don't have access to all of the tools and the features, but I have a new client that we're working with now where their previous entity was charging them like a monthly subscription fee for a service that they could have had for no cost if they set up that account on their own. So like little things like that can save you a buck or two here and there, but can also tell you about the company that you're thinking about working with, right? If they're nickel and diming you for things that don't cost them anything, it could be a pink flag, I don't know if it would be a red flag necessarily.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think so. So just having a baseline education of what it is that you're looking to hire out for. Of course, you want to get a few different quotes just to see where people fall in that landscape. If you get a couple of quotes that are within, $250 or $500 from each other, and then you have another one that's $1,500 more expensive, you can then have that conversation and say, okay, hey, why are you charging so much?
You're right.
Are you delivering me an extra $1,500 of value, or am I going to get the same service that I'm going to get over here, and I'm just going to pay, double the price for?
Yeah.
So just having a little bit of knowledge to equip yourself with when you're going shopping in the marketplace can go a long way in saving you.
Yeah, that's really good, important to look out for sure. What are some of your isms? Like as business owners, after you have X amount of time in the business, you kind of in my experience, you localize your thoughts around certain, I don't want to call them principles, but certain ideas that you end up, like for example, if you were doing 5 podcasts this week, you would mention this one thing, every time. So do you have some isms that you live by, or what are some common things that you find yourself, common ideas that you find yourself repeating?
Yeah. That's a great question. We've touched on a couple of them,
Yeah.
The selling on value, not on price. I think under-promising and over-delivering is a huge one,
Sure.
which kind of ties into that expectation setting. But, in my line of work, we need to be able to provide a very quick win for somebody to kind of prove our value up front. And then we can talk about more of a long-term partnership.
Sure.
And, part of that, I think, and here's one of my core beliefs or core philosophies, is like, I am all about leaving the short-term money on the table to establish the long-term relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are so many opportunities I could have had to make a quick buck here and there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I am more than happy to take a step back, evaluate what this relationship could be in a long-term capacity, and let me give you as much value up front as I possibly can, because my goal is to work with you forever, right?
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And if I can get you to believe that, number one, I'm actually looking out for your best interests, which we are.
Yeah.
But to show you that so that you feel that and build that level of trust with a client, those are the things that are going to serve you in a long-term capacity. So, don't try to get a quick buck, but try to get a quick win. Deliver value up front, sell on value, not on price, under promise, over deliver. Those are some of the core principles that I believe in.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's trying to do their own thing, I think they can probably use every one of those.
Yeah.
So that's very good general business things to live by. So that's great. Now, can you talk to me, because things are going well, and that's good, but maybe give me an example of when something didn't go well. And you kind of mentioned this with setting expectations. I'm sure there was a time where you didn't necessarily set the expectation and something blew up.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me a little bit about maybe a sticky situation and how you managed to either recover that, or maybe even some lessons? Because we all would like to recover from bad situations, but that doesn't always happen. So maybe some learnings or kind of a comeback story, if you will.
Yeah. So mistakes happen, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. Nobody's perfect, and at some point something is going to go wrong. My philosophy around that is, step one, immediately own it. Don't try to pass the buck. Don't try to explain. Just, we dropped the ball. I'm sorry. We learned from that. We've now put a system or a process in place to make sure that that's not going to happen again. And also, you're not going to pay.
Yeah.
You comp, if you have to, you comp the whole invoice for that month. It doesn't matter. Again, leave the short-term money on the table to save the long-term relationship. And that works wonders. Just those 3 things: owning the mistake, ensuring that you have put something in place that mistake's not going to happen again, and then making sure that client is not paying for a mistake.
Yeah.
almost every time that will save or repair the relationship. And then the other thing is just be human, be a good human, right?
Yeah.
So a quick example, COVID hit. It was St. Patrick's Day weekend 2020. Governor Baker announced the shutdown of all non-essential business. The first thing I did, I personally called every client, and if any of you are watching this, you might remember the conversation. I said, "Are you okay? Do you have a plan? How can I help?"
Yeah, that's great.
And don't worry about paying my invoice. If you have other vendors that you need to pay, you have to pay your lease, you want to keep your employees on, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that in the grand scheme of business, our invoices are never going to be on the top of that priority
For
pile.
sure, yeah.
I'm realistic about that. So, just genuinely caring and showing them that you're there for them and I am a resource for you. How can I help you? How can I leverage my network to maybe provide something to you when you're in this time of need or this transitional period?
Yeah, absolutely.
If we have a client who might lose an employee and now, the owner is taking on extra responsibility they're not used to. Hey, what can we do? Can we maybe take something else off your plate that you used to handle for the time being until you can replace that role and get back to business as usual? Just a how can we help mentality goes a long way.
Yeah, in the military we call that just being a good dude. So it sounds like that's exactly what you did during COVID. Switching gears just a little bit, but what is the as the owner of Cloud9 Marketing, what's the dream? Where would you like the company to be? I mean, is it something where you would even consider, if somebody made an offer, would you consider selling the company and doing something else, or which is I know is kind of out of left field, but where do you want to go with Cloud9 or with marketing in general, or is there something else that's way down the road that if you had the opportunity to shorten that timeline, you would do it?
Yeah, I mean, the dream changes, right? I mean, as you start to set goals and achieve goals and then you kind of recourse your path and figure out where you want to go, the dream changes over time. For me right now, my biggest focus, I suppose, would be how can I put myself in a position where I'm not trading time for money, right? And,
yeah, for sure.
And passive income is a buzzword, and everybody chases it. And in a lot of instances that people think about passive income, traditionally, it's not viable.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to sort of diversify myself personally, and professionally, not necessarily in Cloud9's capacity, but my ultimate dream or North Star is to say, how can I have different ways of generating revenue where I don't necessarily have to trade my time for money? And hiring employees is an example of that, right?
Sure.
When I like I said earlier, I never even really wanted to be an entrepreneur. This was never part of the plan.
Yeah.
Once I started, I realized, hey, if I'm going to scale this business, if I'm already working 60, 70 hours a week, there's not really much more that I can give.
Yeah.
I need to hire somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
So doing that and leveraging that opportunity. And then as you start to network and you start to meet people that are smarter than you are, and you start to learn from them, hopefully you can get your hands on a mentor or two.
Yeah.
And just absorbing what other people have done that hasn't worked, what they're doing that is working, trying to implement some of those things in your own life. As far as Cloud9 goes, I think we are set in terms of what we're going to offer the marketplace. I can't really foresee me opening up a video production division or a web design division, right? Those are things that I could probably, easily do just by hiring the right person, putting them in place, giving them the tools, and telling them to run. I probably think about it every year.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But I just don't think that that's the path that I'm headed down. But yeah, so I guess sort of a long-winded way around the answer to your question is, for me right now, the dream is to be able to not trade time for money.
Okay, that's great. But you did mention something that I kind of want to ask about, which is to say that you kind of stumbled into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Who shouldn't be an entrepreneur? You know, because
Great question.
Well, because it's like
Great question.
When you're doing well, like it's obviously nobody sees the hard work. They just see the results. They don't see everything under the earth, and you don't necessarily. You might not be born an entrepreneur, but you can kind of, once you're in it, you find that it works out well. But that's not going to be the case for everybody. So kind of give me, from obviously you've got this network of people who are in business for themselves. So what are maybe some green flags and what are some red flags for somebody who's thinking about striking out on their own?
Yeah. So I try to be a positive and optimistic person. So I'll talk about some of the qualities that work well if you're trying to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You need the ability you need to be a self-starter.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. If you can wake up in the morning and you don't have to be at work at a certain time and you don't have a manager that you have to report to, you don't have somebody giving you a task list that you need to accomplish, there's some people that can't function in that environment.
Too much freedom.
Too much freedom, right? And the ability to get lazy, it's there, right? So being a self-starter bodes well for somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur. Being able to prioritize tasks.
Yeah.
If you have that skill set, that is going to set you up for success as an entrepreneur. There are, trying not to, over exaggerate here, there's probably 30, 40, 50 things a day that I could be doing.
Yeah.
Understanding which of those 30 things are the ones that I need to do first and foremost and check off the list, and then being able to prioritize my way down from there, extremely important.
Yep, absolutely.
And there's a lot of tasks that take a lot of time but have diminishing return.
Yep.
And, balancing that. So those are two of the biggest ones for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of what I found helpful is to even, what I do now is I keep a log of every day. So just a real basic composition notebook, because when I first started, I knew that I spent my day somehow, right? Because 24 hours had passed, but I looked back and I said, what did I actually do? Yeah. So it's very easy to lose track of time and look back and not really understand where all your time went. So what I do is just a basic practice is every day, here's what I'm going to try to accomplish. At the end of every day, here's how that thing went. And I find that that's at least a good start, But, the funny thing is that I've heard this before. I think it was from Dan Hardy. He said, when you go work for yourself, it's not that you don't have a boss, it's that you are your own boss, and you have to ask yourself, as your own boss, would you tolerate this behavior out of an employee? And so, because people think, hey, I got all this freedom and I can do what I want, and it's like you are sometimes engaging in behavior that you wouldn't tolerate if you had to cut somebody a check.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So that's huge. So I guess maybe the last question is what's next for Cloud9? I know you've already touched on some other things, but maybe more open-ended. What are you doing? What's next? What's maybe the next big thing that you want to accomplish? Tell us where the business is going.
Yeah, I mean, right now we sit with two full-time employees and myself. For what's next, I think it would be to grow the staff at a sustainable pace. I'm a believer in hiring slightly ahead of the need. Being aware and regularly evaluating my team's workload, my workload, getting somebody onboarded and trained and up to speed before I need that. That way, I never have to. There's two things that I never want to happen. Number one, I don't ever want the service to suffer.
Yeah.
The service that we provide to a client, I don't ever want to provide less than exemplary service because there's not enough bandwidth. That's the first and foremost thing. The second thing is, of course, I don't want to turn an opportunity away.
Yeah.
So, for me, for the near future, it's just keeping an eye on that workload, making sure that we have the pieces in place that we need to continually grow at a steady and sustainable pace, and just keep doing what we're doing. We have over 155-star reviews online, and the reason why we have that is because we are so customer service oriented, and that's sort of my promise to my clients is that I'm going to treat your business like it was my own, and the best way to do that is to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you thrive on being basically like on demand. So it's incredible that that you're able to keep everybody happy all the time. That sounds like that's an integral part of your business model.
There's a fine line to that, right? Because in my industry, what the service that we provide, there is a sort of 24/7 aspect to that.
Yeah, for sure.
The internet never closes.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And a issue could arise with a client where they have a customer that might not have had a wonderful experience, and it might be 11:30 on a Friday night, and how are we going to handle that in that situation?
Sure.
Are we going to address it immediately? Is that something that we can, can this problem wait till Monday morning? Sometimes it can't. And we're more than prepared for that. It does get tricky, right? Trying to have a work-life balance. That's a key.
Yeah, for sure.
But these are all things that you have to consider in entrepreneurship in any capacity. Is how is work-life balance going to fit? What are the things that I'm going to prioritize? It all comes together at the end of the day, and thankfully for us, things have been going very well for the past 9 years, and I'm very much looking forward to what the future has to bring.
Yeah, just like with anything, or with most things that we do, unless it's like a hard number or a spreadsheet somewhere, it's an art form. Most of everything, like how you. Sometimes you have to push back, and sometimes you agree. Sometimes you're like, hey, wait a second, let's talk about this and see. So it can go either way, and how to figure that out is like very much a sets and reps kind of thing. Last question for you is, or maybe just an open statement is there anything that else that you want to say, or is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think is important to either your industry or entrepreneurship or just general know-how? Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this has been very comprehensive, and I appreciate the time and the effort that you've put into putting this on, and thank you again for having me on as a guest. There's no like nuggets really that I was really hoping to unearth that we haven't covered here. I think just kind of leave folks with, be honest with yourself, be honest with everybody else. And life will sort of fall into place the way it's supposed to. You're going to come across things in your business life and in your personal life where it may feel like this could be the end of the world, right? And you just need to take a step back, evaluate all of the information that you have at hand, and make the best decision that you can in that moment, and then see what comes, and then step back and evaluate again.
Well, yeah, I think that's a rock solid philosophy. And in Catalyst Conversations, what we're trying to do is have light bulbs go off. So we try to make the conversation palatable and also useful enough to where something like your professor said, hey, well, apply to this thing, and now it's completely changed the entire course of your life. So if something that you said, or if something's in the conversation would create that kind of pivot for somebody, I mean, that'd be huge. So thanks so much for being here. We'll do another 60 years. Cheers to another 60 years for Cloud9.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care. Bye.